In this video, I'll explain my reasons for moving across to the Octopus Agile tariff and why in fact the Octopus Agile tariff is. So stay tuned. Hi, John here. So let's get stuck straight into the meat of this video right off the bat. It's probably worth mentioning the term tariff for any non-UK viewers, as it's a term I'm going to be featuring quite a lot or mentioning quite a lot. In the UK, an energy tariff is how our energy providers charge their customers for their gas and electricity use. There are two main types of tariff: a fixed tariff and a variable tariff. And all our energy companies offer quite a wide range of different tariffs, which a customer can pick and choose from depending on their needs and usage. Our energy providers, also known as shippers and suppliers, have to suggest the best tariff for a customer, and they usually do this by highlighting their cheapest tariff on the customer's bill. E.g., you could save X amount by switching to this tariff. Historically, the vast majority of the people in the UK have never changed their energy suppliers, very much like they never changed their bank. This is now starting to change due to high-profile marketing and advertising campaigns from price comparison websites and companies who offer to save money on energy bills, insurance, and a whole host of other products and services. So competition between energy suppliers is slowly starting to take effect. Traditionally in the UK, we've been stuck with the big six, as they've come to know, big six energy companies: EDF, British Gas, npower, SSE, Scottish Power and E.ON. People have criticised the UK energy market and the big six because they supply the vast majority of UK households. And questions have been raised about the competitiveness of the energy market. Claims of price fixing usually intensify when all six suppliers raise their gas and electricity prices around the same time, although this has become less common with the introduction of the energy price cap at the beginning of 2019. In recent years, there have been many new energy suppliers entering the market with what at the time were new products like 100% renewable energy, electric vehicle tariffs, and other services not found or offered by the big six. So, that's a little bit of background to the energy market for domestic customers and what a tariff actually is. In 2016, Octopus Energy entered the energy market to disrupt the status quo with energy that's good for the planet, good for your wallet, and honestly, good for your soul. Since then, they've been picking up 30,000 customers a month on average and now supply energy to 1.5 million UK homes and counting. To this day, 92% of their customers rate them as 5-star excellent on Trustpilot, and they're the only supplier to be recommended by Consumer Champion Which year after year after year. So let's look at the Agile tariff from Octopus Energy. On the 18th of February 2018, Octopus introduced the Agile tariff, a 100% green electricity tariff with plunge pricing. Perfect for those with electric vehicles, storage heaters, or anyone who can shift their electricity use outside the 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. peak. Agile works by tracking daily wholesale energy prices and providing visibility of the next day's pricing sometime about 4 p.m. on the previous day. With the Agile tariff, you get access to half-hour energy prices tied to the wholesale energy prices, and they're updated daily. When wholesale prices drop, so do your bills. And if you can shift your daily usage outside the peak times, you can save even more. Knowing the price ahead allows you to plan your usage accordingly. Over the past 12 months, A typical UK family would save £210 on the Octopus Agile tariff compared to the average Big Six on the variable tariff. And you could save another £120 on top by shifting your electricity usage outside those peak hours. At around 4 p.m. every day, the unit rates are updated for the next 24 hours based on the wholesale market rates. You can see the rates on the Octopus website, or there are apps which you can get on your phone or smartwatches, and they will show you the current and next day rates. As you use electricity, Octopus Energy use the half-hourly usage data from your smart meter to calculate your bill, which means you need a smart meter to take advantage of this tariff. A 21 pence daily subscription or standing charge covers costs including metering, distribution and other fixed costs. There's a price capping of 35 pence per kilowatt, which is the maximum you'll ever get to pay for a kilowatt. And this would probably be in peak time period between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. each day. Looking back at the past 12 months, there's only been a few days when this rate has been charged. You may have heard the term plunge pricing or negative pricing. Plunge pricing pays you to take excess energy off the grid. Across the UK, when more electricity is generated than consumed, energy prices fall, sometimes to the point where prices go below zero. And suppliers are paid to take energy off the grid. It's the most effective and quickest way to balance the grid for supply and demand. With renewable energy generation being less controllable, on windy days or very sunny days, there is often a peak in production that demand cannot fulfill. This will lead to low unit rate pricing or even negative pricing in order to ensure that the energy gets used. Octopus Energy introduced plunge pricing. It's a world first that lets you take advantage of those negative pricing events and get paid for using electricity. Customers receive an SMS text alert on their phone whenever prices drop below zero. Or they can use Octopus Energy's API to program their smart devices. More on API and what it can do later, along with IFTTT. Over the past 12 months, unit prices have dropped below 2p per kilowatt 31 times. The average electricity tariff here in the UK is about 15 to 17 pence per unit or per kilowatt. So you can see it's quite a saving. So why did I move from Octopus's Go tariff to the Agile tariff? Well, let me give you some background on our setup at home to give you some context behind my decision. We have two EVs, a Tesla Model 3 Performance and a Kona SE 64 kilowatt premium model. We have 6 kilowatts of solar panels split across two separate arrays. We have a Tesla Powerwall 2 on the original Gateway 1. We have a myenergi zappi, which version 1 that is, which charges the cars. We've got a myenergi eddi we use to heat the hot water. And they're the main components of our system. And we also have the myenergi hub, which talks to the myenergi servers to share data, so downloads historic usage data and firmware updates. And we've got two myenergi harvies, which are a little intelligent wireless sensor, which enables the myenergi product family to be installed without need to hardwire CTs, current transformer clamps, and all the routing difficulty that comes with hardwiring cables. So that's our setup. The Go tariff is a fixed tariff, so it's 15 pence per kilowatt, except between 12:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., where it's 5 pence per kilowatt. And, this was great because we knew where we were in terms of the price and costs. However, After doing some research and talking to people with similar setups as ours, they were finding that the Agile tariff worked really well for them. And the results and figures they were publishing showed that they were able to shift their usage outside 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. with the aid of the battery and save a lot of money, basically. And the Agile tariff allowed them to take advantage of the cheapest rates to charge their EVs and run their household appliances like washing machines, tumble dryers, dishwashers and so on. And some individuals would even automate their setups, only to start charging their cars and run their appliances at the cheapest rate during the day. And over the past 365 days, the average price for electricity in my area, which is the East Midlands, was 8.98, almost 9 pence per kilowatt on the Agile tariff. And as I mentioned, I was paying 15 pence per kilowatt with that 4-hour window of 5 pence. So, the Octopus tariff was good, but on paper, the Agile tariff made much more sense. So looking at the figures, it would seem that we would save money. We knew we can shift our energy usage to ensure that we didn't pull from the grid between those peak times of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. And as long as the Tesla Powerwall was charged, it would see us through those 3 hours of peak, even if we were doing cooking and what have you, because the Powerwall can supply up to 5 kilowatts as a constant load. And if the solar panels were generating, then it was no problems we didn't really need to pull from the Powerwall, or certainly from the grid. So I decided it was worth trying out the tariff to see if it worked for us. And the worst case scenario was that we could always drop back to the previous tariff. Signing up was a doddle. I went to the website, registered interest, got confirmation of the change, and the next working day we were on the Agile tariff. We swapped on midnight on Monday the 6th of July into the morning of Tuesday the 7th of July. It really went smoothly, no problems whatsoever. However, the weather predictably didn't go so well. It was actually awful for the first few days on the new tariff. Very little solar activity, rain almost non-stop with overcast grey skies. Certainly not ideal conditions for solar production. I did think that this would be our sort of wintertime testing, to be honest, because the conditions more suited November much better than they did July. We did manage to squeeze through our first day, which was Tuesday the 7th of July, on solar and battery, and only pulled 1.5 kilowatts from the grid. But the solar activity was poor, just under 15 kilowatt hours, which wasn't really enough to run the house and charge the Powerwall, because the house usage for that day was 19 kilowatt hours. So the next day, on Wednesday, the 8th of July, our second day on the new tariff, at around 9 a.m, I looked at the weather forecast for the day, and it was overcast, almost no direct sunshine. So I decided to move the Tesla Powerwall onto time-based control, cost-saving mode from self-powered mode. And the reason for this is that on the self-power mode, it hardly ever pulls from the grid to top up the Powerwall. It would allow itself to run completely flat, and then the house would pull from the grid rather than charge from the grid. So this meant that the battery could be emptied, and as we headed into peak time at between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m, we'd have nothing in the battery. So in cost-saving mode, it will prioritise pulling from the grid during the off-peak when the electricity is cheap, and charge the battery accordingly. So I plugged in the new peak times into the configuration screen in the Powerwall, so it knew the off-peak and peak times during the day. And within an hour of that change, the Powerwall started to pull from the grid and charge the battery, which ensured there would be enough charge to get us through that 3-hour peak time slot. Since swapping to cost-saving mode, We haven't pulled from the grid during peak time. Granted, it's only been 3-4 days, but at least it works in principle. And you can see clearly from the charts here, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We haven't pulled from the grid between those 3-hour time slot, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So I got to the decision of, well, what do I do? Do I keep the Powerwall on cost-saving mode, or do I swap it back to self-power mode? However, as it turned out, the weather made that decision for me. On Friday, the 10th of July, we had sunshine in the morning. We'd not seen the sun for 3 days, basically. And at about 8 a.m. in the morning, the Powerwall was 90% full, charged mainly from the grid, with some solar surplus. The house was still pulling from the grid, despite almost having a full battery and some solar activity. So from midnight to 8 a.m. on that Friday, we'd pulled 7.5 kilowatts from the grid. I'll bring that chart up so you can have a look at it. Grid is showing in grey, the house usage is in blue, the Powerwall is in green, and above the line is what's being used by the house, and then below the line is what's being sent to the grid if it's in grey, or if it's in green, it's charging the Powerwall. And then yellow is solar. So in short, we had solar, which would run the house in conjunction with the Powerwall. However, instead of using the Powerwall, we were still pulling from the grid. And, while 7.7 kilowatt works out to about 30 pence, it was the principle and the functioning of the system that I wanted to rectify, rather than worrying about the actual cost. So I decided to swap back to self-power mode on the Powerwall, and the grid pull stopped almost instantly. The house used the solar, and the delta was then picked up by the Powerwall. And the rest of the day was fine. There was enough excess solar to charge one of the cars. We put 12 kilowatts in, and also we heated the hot water using the eddi. We put 3.25 kilowatts, well, 3.25 kilowatts. And we got through the peak time on solar and the Powerwall. So thinking back and reviewing how the Powerwall reacted on that morning of Friday the 10th, I figured that because the Powerwall's algorithm works on historic patterns of solar activity, house usage and solar surplus to predict what's likely to happen, and because it has no forward-looking weather forecasting built in or data feeds for weather, as it hadn't seen any solar surplus for the past 3 days and very low solar activity, I'm guessing it presumed that on Friday the 10th it would be the same. It therefore felt it was important to keep a high state of charge in the battery for peak period later on in the day, and use the cheap off-peak grid to pull the power from the grid to run the house, which was, in principle right, but in fact it was wrong, because based on the weather that we were going to have on that day, we were going to have loads and loads of sunshine. So I think, depending on the conditions, I'll need to move the Powerwall between self-powered when it's sunny and cost-saving mode when it's overcast or there's little solar activity forecast. I guess the only fly in the ointment for my setup is the inability to manually control the charging of the Powerwall. With the Gateway 1, there's no option to set a reserve buffer in the battery. The newer Gateway 2 has that ability via the backup option, where you can define the percentage state of charge that you want left in the battery in case of a power outage. And that will then force the battery to charge to that amount. You can then reduce the percentage charge, and then that surplus will then be used to power the house from the battery. To upgrade the gateway from 1 to 2 is about £1,300 ex VAT, and I'm not really sure whether it's worth spending that for the level of control. I'm certainly not going to recoup that in savings, in any short-term investment. I guess there is a benefit of knowing that if there is a power outage, that we'll still have our lights on. But how often is that going to happen? We don't get many power outages in our area. The power supply is actually really, really good. So I'm sort of dithering, as you can probably tell, whether to make that investment. It would certainly give me more control, but I know that Tesla longer term are looking at providing more manual control. So I don't know which one's going to come first. Okay, so back to Agile. What do you actually need to join Agile? Octopus Energy State on their website. The Agile Octopus product is available now to customers, and it's a beta program, it's worth saying. All you need is a SMETS 2 smart meter or a secure branded SMETS 1 meter that they can receive half-hourly data from. As I said just there, Octopus Agile is a beta product, and if you're okay with some things may not work first time, that installations and processes may take a little bit longer than they'd like, and there are on occasion data issues with smart meters can actually take quite some significant time to fix, and that prevents things working. But if you'd like to work with Octopus Energy and making really a world-changing energy tariff a reality, then go online and tick the box to get on board. As I mentioned earlier, you'll always be able to switch to one of their more fairly priced standard tariffs at any time if you want to. And I've put details down below in the description, plus my referral code if you wanted to take up and consider swapping to Octopus Energy if you're not already a customer. I've also included down below all the links and apps and websites that I've used during my research and sort of ongoing usage, so have a look down there. And I also briefly referred to API and IFTTT a couple of times during the video, so let me explain those in a little bit more detail at a high level. Firstly, API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. It's basically a computing interface which defines interactions between multiple software intermediaries. It defines the kind of calls or requests that can be made, how to make them, the data formats that should be used, the conventions to follow, and it allows software developers to retrieve specific data. For the Agile tariff, it allows you to browse the energy products, the tariffs and their changes, retrieve details about UK electricity meter points, browse the half-hourly consumption of the electricity and gas, and some other account functions as well. And people have created software applications to read, display and act on the latest prices for that 30-minute price slots for the Agile tariff. So for example, energy-stats.uk, trouble reading that, is a great website for historic and real-time data on the Agile tariff. And again, I'll link that down below. I'm certainly no software engineer or developer and don't have a clue about this type of thing, but the API is really useful if you're into that kind of programming. The second term I talked about was IFTTT. It's basically gift without the G, so it's pronounced IFTTT, I-F-T-T. And it stands for if this then that. And this allows individuals to create applets that can run and do things like send an email when the Agile prices are going to go into negative. IFTTT used to be called if this then that because applets could just do one trigger and one action. So if this happens, then that happens. So for example, when you come home, then turn on the hue lights. Now they just go by IFTTT because there are so many more things that you can do. Applets can run when you tell them to, with a tap via widgets on your phone, for example. Applets can have multiple actions, so if this, then that, and that. And then some applets even have filters, which means they only run when a specific condition is met. So if this and that, then that. It's certainly too big a subject for this video. Suffice to say, with API access and IFTTT, there's a whole opportunity opening up there. Any questions? Well, if there's any questions about the Agile tariff, then drop them in the comments down below. If you're already on the Agile tariff, how are you finding it? Are you using any of the API and IFTTT facilities? And if so, which ones are you finding most beneficial? Certainly early days for us on the Agile tariff. However, it is working well, and when we're pulling from the grid, it's at the 2/3 of the price that it was on our previous tariff. I'm really waiting for the month end to see what our bills are going to be like. However, I know they will certainly be less than what we spent using the Go tariff. So there you go. That's the Agile tariff. Until the next video, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon.